Ekwueme came back to find his wife in the arms of another man. The discovery wasn't gradual. It wasn't a quiet suspicion or a slow-burning revelation. No, it was like the earth had cracked open and swallowed his heart whole. Ol at ban. On, he had crossed 100 miles of thick forest, climbing hills and treading over the river's edge, each step filled with hope, only to come home and have his dreams trampled like the overgrown path he walked. His breath caught in his throat when he saw them, the two figures, entwined beneath the dark shade of the mango tree, laughing as if they had never known sorrow. He had heard her laugh many times, but now it felt like a dagger being twisted in his chest. For a long moment, Ekwueme stood frozen in the doorway, his hands clenched into fists. The rhythmic pulse of his heart sounded loud in his ears, pounding against his ribs like war drums. His eyes narrowed in disbelief. Adaze's Adaeze, the one he had promised to return to, the woman who had promised to wait, was in the arms of another man. The man wasn't from their village. Ekwueme knew this because his skin gleamed dark like polished ebony, his features sharp, and his laughter had the careless tone of someone who knew no shame. Ekwueme's mind raced. He had left her with promises of better days, words filled with love and assurance. He had toiled in foreign lands for seasons to send her gifts, to send her word, to make their lives better. And now, the betrayal felt like a slap across his face, so sharp it left a sting in his eyes. He thought of the nights he had spent under strange stars, sending his love through letters, trusting that she would wait. How had it come to this? How had she let another man touch her in the way he once had? The sounds of their laughter echoed through the air, but the sting of it was now unbearable. The breeze carried the soft rustle of leaves, but it felt cold against his skin. His thoughts were clouded with a bitter swirl of anger, confusion, and something deeper, something raw that gnawed at him like hunger. As if the universe itself had reached out and pulled him forward, Ekwueme found his legs moving, carrying him across the familiar earth that had once felt like home. He crossed the threshold of the compound, the dust rising beneath his feet. Adaeze, the woman who had promised to be faithful, was now in the arms of someone else, and everything he had worked for seemed suddenly fragile, as if it were made of dust and wind. His breath came in short bursts as he neared the door, feeling his pulse thrumming in his neck. He reached the doorframe and stood there, staring at them for a long moment. Adaze's head rested on the stranger's shoulder, her hair falling loosely about her face. She laughed again softly, sweetly, the same laugh that had once made his heart race, but now it felt like a mockery. "Ekwueme Adaeze," said when she finally looked up, her voice breaking the stillness, a tremor running through it. "You're back." The stranger sat up quickly, his eyes wide with a mix of guilt and defiance. He wiped his hands on his lap and stood, bowing his head slightly as though to acknowledge arrival. But Ekwueme didn't want acknowledgement. He wanted answers. His mouth felt dry, his throat tight. "What is this?" Ekwueme's voice broke through the heavy silence, and the words came out low, almost a growl. "What is this betrayal?" Adaeze stood up slowly, her hand trembling as she reached out to him. But Ekwueme stepped back, unwilling to touch her. The distance between them grew, a vast chasm now yawning open between their once shared world. I didn't expect you to come back," Adaeze stammered, her eyes darting to the ground, unable to meet his gaze. "It has been so long, and I was lonely. I thought you'd forgotten me." The words hung in the air, like thick smoke, suffocating everything in its path. Adaze's admission stung, but it wasn't the real wound. The wound was deeper, deeper than her words. It was the unspoken betrayal, the violation of trust, the shattering of the promises they had made to each other. "Lonely," Ekwueme's voice hardened, the edge of his anger sharpening. "Is that what you tell yourself? That I was the one who abandoned you? You think that your loneliness justifies this disgrace?" The stranger shifted uncomfortably, but Adaeze didn't look at him. Her eyes remained fixed on the earth, as if seeking an answer in the dirt beneath her feet. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Ekwueme," she whispered, but the words held no weight, no conviction. "I never stopped loving you. I thought you had forgotten me. I thought you would never come back." Her confession was like a blade to his chest. She had let another man hold her, Let him fill the space that Ekwueme had once occupied. It was as though all the love they had shared had turned to dust in the wind. "You thought I had forgotten you," Ekwueme repeated, disbelief thick in his voice. "And so you gave yourself to him, just like that." "I didn't know what to do, Ekwueme. You were gone for so long. I thought I had no other choice." Her voice trembled, as though the weight of her own guilt was beginning to crush her. She looked up at him then, her eyes red with unshed tears. "I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." Ekwueme closed his eyes, his mind spinning. He had given everything for her, every part of him, his hopes, his dreams, his very soul. And she had let another man into their home, into their life. The pain was unbearable, but the betrayal cut deeper still. He couldn't look at her anymore. He turned his back on her, the heat of the moment burning his skin. "Live," Ekwueme said, his voice cold and steady. "Both of you, leave my compound." Adaze's mouth opened as if to protest, but Ekwueme's gaze silenced her. The stranger, sensing the weight of the command, stood and walked toward the door, his steps slow but certain. Adaeze remained standing, rooted to the spot. The silence between them felt suffocating, and the sounds of the village seemed far away, muted as if they were happening in another world. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Adaeze turned away and followed the stranger out, leaving Ekwueme alone in the emptiness of his home. For a long time, he stood in the doorway, staring at the dust settling where they had stood just moments before. The earth beneath his feet felt alien, as though it no longer recognized him. His world had been shattered, and the silence that followed was more deafening than any sound he had ever heard. The days that followed were a blur of silence and rage. Ekwueme hardly left his house. The village, once familiar, now felt like a prison. His footsteps, which had once carried him proudly across the dusty paths, now felt like a burden, each step heavier than the last. His heart, which had once beat with the rhythm of the earth, now seemed to beat out of sync, lost in the void between the life he had known and the life that lay in ruins. Adaeze had not returned to him. She did not come to speak, to explain, or to apologize. Ekwueme had expected anger, perhaps tears, or even pleading. But there had been none. She had vanished from his life, like the wind, leaving only the scent of betrayal behind her. The silence between them was not one of calm, but of a chasm too vast to cross. The villagers spoke in hushed tones. They spoke of Adaeze and the stranger, their whispers carrying across the market square, the river banks, and the fields. There were those who pitied Ekwueme, and then there were those who spoke with sharp tongues, accusing him of abandoning his wife, of leaving her in the hands of loneliness. But what did they know of his toil, of his sacrifice? Ekwueme had given everything for her, worked the soil of distant lands to send her riches and dreams. How dare they blame him for her actions? How dare they not see the injustice of it all? The anger in his chest grew each day, like fire feeding on dry grass. But even as his rage consumed him, something else gnawed at him, something deeper. His pride, his heart, they burned with betrayal. But his spirit, it yearned for something more. It was as if the earth itself had called him back, as if the spirits had risen in response to his suffering. And so, after a week of brooding silence, Ekwueme sought the guidance of Nika, the village priestess. Nika was known for her wisdom and her connection to the spirit world, a woman whose words carried the weight of ancestral knowledge. She was the keeper of secrets, the one who could see what was hidden to the living. The air had grown thick with the heat of the day when Ekwueme made his way to her hut. The smell of burning sage and incense lingered around the entrance, and the rhythmic sound of drums echoed from somewhere in the distance. The village, normally bustling with life, seemed to hold its breath, as though it awaited some answer. Nika was sitting cross-legged in the center of a hut, her long white robes flowing around her like the mist of early morning. Her eyes, clouded with age and knowledge, met his gaze as soon as he entered. She did not need to ask why he had come. She knew. "Ekwueme," she said, her voice soft but commanding, "I see the weight you carry, and it has already begun to bend your spirit. But the heart is a strange thing. It does not always bend the way we expect it to. Sometimes it breaks, and sometimes It heals in ways we cannot see." Ekwueme did not speak. He did not need to. His heart felt as though it had already been broken, and all he wanted was for the pain to stop. Nika motioned for him to sit beside her. As he lowered himself to the ground, she reached out and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "Tell me, Ekwueme," she began. "What is it you seek from me? What is it you hope to find in the words of the spirits?" Ekwueme's voice was raw, his words barely more than a whisper. "I seek justice, Nika. I seek answers. I want to know why she did this. I want to know what I did wrong. I thought I was the one who would come back to her, the one who would fulfill the promises we made. But I returned to find her gone, lost to another man. I want to know why." Nika nodded slowly, her gaze far away, as though she were seeing something beyond the physical world. "The spirits speak to us in many ways, Ekwueme. Sometimes they speak through dreams, sometimes through signs in the earth. But you must listen carefully. For the spirits do not speak in anger. They speak in wisdom." "But I have no wisdom left," Ekwueme said, his voice trembling. "My heart is full of anger, and I do not know how to let it go." Nika smiled, a gentle curve of her lips that spoke of years of understanding. "Then you must listen to the earth. You must listen to what it tells you. For the earth does not lie. It will show you the way." Ekwueme felt a deep stirring within him, something ancient, something primal. The earth, very soil beneath his feet, had always been his companion. The smell of the earth after rain, the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves, the feeling of the ground beneath him when he walked, these were the things that had anchored him to life, that had kept him grounded. He stood and walked to the entrance of the hut. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the village. The air was thick with the scent of dusk, the promise of nightfall just beyond the horizon. As Ekwueme stood there, gazing out at the landscape, Nika's voice reached him again. "Go to the sacred grove, Ekwueme," she said. "There you will find the answers you seek. The spirits dwell there. They will show you what you must know." Ekwueme did not hesitate. He knew the sacred grove well. It was a place untouched by human hands, where the trees grew tall and ancient, their roots burrowing deep into the earth. The spirits, Nika had said, dwelled there, and perhaps the spirits might show him the truth. As he walked through the village, the whispers of the people faded into the distance. He did not hear the sounds of the children playing or the women laughing in the market. All he heard was the pounding of his heart, louder now, as if it sought the truth. The path to the grove was long and winding, and the moon began to rise above the trees, casting an eerie glow over the land. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the night creatures filled the air. It was then, in the silence of the grove, that Ekwueme felt a presence, strong and ancient, surrounding him. The spirits were here, watching, waiting. He stood beneath the tallest tree in the grove, its gnarled branches stretching toward the heavens. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves, and Ekwueme closed his eyes. He felt the earth beneath his feet, the coolness of the soil seeping through his sandals, grounding him. And then, in the stillness, the voice came. "Ekwueme," it said. "Lone Ekwueme, you seek answers, but are you ready to hear them?" Ekwueme's breath caught in his throat. He was ready. He had to be. The pain had been too great, the betrayal too sharp. He was ready. "Tell me, spirit," Ekwueme whispered. "Why did she do it? Why did she betray me?" The wind rustled the leaves of the ancient trees, their shadows stretching long across the ground, as if the spirits themselves were listening. Ekwueme stood still, his heart racing, his mind a tempest of questions. The voice that had spoken to him in the grove was not the voice of a man, but something much older, much more profound. It seemed to echo through the very soil beneath his feet, vibrating through his bones, as though the earth itself was breathing with him. "Are you ready to hear the truth, Ekwueme?" the voice repeated, its tones steady, but filled with the weight of centuries. It was a question, yet it seemed to come from everywhere, filling the space around him. Ekwueme's breath was shallow. His heart pounded in his chest like a drum, beating in time with the rhythm of the universe. He had come this far, had walked the path of anger and despair, and now Here, in this sacred place, he had no choice but to confront the unknown. "I am ready," Ekwueme whispered, the words carrying a heavy weight of surrender. Tokeno. He could not live with the uncertainty, the gnawing question that tore at him. Why had Adaeze done this? What was the truth? The wind picked up again, swirling around him, and the shadows of the trees seemed to shift. The ground beneath his feet hummed with the power of the spirits. Then, like a breath that filled the world, the voice spoke again, but this time it came from within him, as though it was his own voice, yet not his. "Ekwueme," the voice said softly, "the answer you seek is not as simple as you believe. It is true that Adaeze betrayed you, but her actions were not born from malice. They were born from something deeper, yearning, a fear, a need." Ekwueme's mind reeled, but the voice continued, calm and unyielding. "She was not the only one who felt the absence between you. When you left, it was not just your body that went, but your spirit. You were 1,000 miles away, and she, in her solitude, grew restless. She feared she would grow old alone. She feared she would never feel the touch of love again." Ekwueme's throat tightened as the words sank in, but the voice was not finished. "She did not betray you because she no longer loved you," the voice continued. "She betrayed you because she feared that love would slip away in your absence, and in that fear, she reached out to another. The man you saw was a distraction, a brief reprieve from the loneliness that threatened to swallow her whole." Ekwueme closed his eyes, the pain and confusion still gnawing at him, but the weight of the spirit's words began to ease the anger in his chest. He felt, for the first time, that the answer was not a sharp knife, but a soft wind, sweeping through him, clearing the storm clouds of his heart. "And you," the voice said, a note of understanding in its tone, "you, too, are not free of fault. Your absence was not just in body but in spirit. You may have sent gifts and letters, but your heart was far away. Your soul, Ekwueme, was lost in the land you worked, and in that lostness you neglected the very thing that bound you to her. Adaeze, in her own way, was trying to survive without you. But survival does not mean forgetting. She did not forget. You, she forgot the way to wait." The words sank into Ekwueme like rain falling into dry earth. His anger began to dissipate, replaced by a deep, sorrowful understanding. He had left Yazba, not just physically. He had let the distance between them become more than just a matter of miles. He had allowed it to become a wall, a silence too deep to cross. He stood there for a long moment, letting the spirit's counsel fill him. It was not the justice he had wanted, nor the vengeance he had imagined in his darkest hours. But it was the truth. The weight of it was heavy, but it was also the only thing that could heal him. The wind shifted again, and the voice spoke once more, gentle and soft. "The path forward is not easy, but there is still time. Time for healing, time for forgiveness. You must return to Adaeze, not as the man who left, but as the man who understands, the one who will listen, who will see her, not as a wife who betrayed him, but as a woman who, too, was lost." Ekwueme stood in silence, the truth of it all settling over him like the night's first stars. He had expected fire. He had expected fury. Instead, the spirits had given him peace, a peace that came not from forgetting, but from understanding. He turned, the ground beneath his feet no longer foreign but familiar. He knew what he had to do. He had to go back to Adaeze, not to demand an apology, but to offer one of his own. He had to listen to her, see her pain, and heal the wounds that both of them had carried for so long. The grove around him seemed to fade as he walked away, the whispers of the spirits following him like the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. His heart, once so heavy, felt lighter now, as if the weight of his own pride had been lifted, replaced by the understanding that he, too, was human, flawed, and capable of redemption. As he left the sacred grove behind, the voice of the spirits echoed one last time, a final whisper carried on the night air. Forgiveness is not given. It is earned, through the courage to see what is broken and the strength to heal it. And so, with a heart finally open to the truth, Ekwueme made his way back to the village. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was a path he would walk with open eyes and an open heart.